Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and we have an update on the guards who were supposedly watching Epstein. All right, so we talked about a few days ago that a criminal indictment was very likely for these guards who were in charge of watching Epstein the night that he, quote-unquote, committed suicide. And lo and behold, here we are today, and that indictment has been served. So, according to sources... They're funny, right? Those sources. According to sources, these two folks, they turned down a plea deal. I wonder what's up with that. There seems to be more going on there than we hear about, right? I mean, why would they turn down this plea deal if it's obvious that they forged these documents and whatnot? Pretty interesting part of the case that I don't think we're getting enough information on right now. Anyway, our article is from the USA Today. And the headline is, 2 federal prison officers charged with falsifying records in connection with Jeffrey Epstein's suicide. 2 federal prison officers were charged Tuesday with falsifying records stating they had checked on accused sex trafficker. Accused? No, not accused. He was more than accused. He was an actual pedophile. Jeffrey Epstein in the house before he hanged himself, allegedly, in his Manhattan cell. Federal prosecutors alleged that Tova Noel and Michael Thomas, assigned to Epstein's special housing unit at Metropolitan Correctional Center, browsed the internet, lingered in an office common area, and appeared to sleep for 2 hours when they should have been conducting inmate checks. Noel and Thomas signed false certifications attesting they had made their required rounds according to court records. Prosecutors alleged that no inmate checks were made from 10:30 p.m. August 9th to 6:30 a.m. the following morning. That's a whole shift, right? It's a whole 8-hour shift. Nobody checked on them for their whole shift. How could that even occur? I don't care if you were having playing a game of Risk with your buddy and playing a board game. There's no way that for 8 whole hours nobody checks on this guy. Why? When the officers discovered Epstein's body, during that time, the officers should have conducted 5 separate inmate counts in the high-security unit. A review of surveillance video allegedly showed the 2 officers asleep at their desks at one point during the night, according to court documents. Oh, so they have video surveillance of the desks, but they don't have surveillance of the cell? So what I gather from this is, once again, we have to follow the evidence for ourselves because we can't count on the mainstream media to do it. So if this is to be believed, then that means that these cameras were working in the guards area. So that would lead me to believe that the cameras were working throughout the rest of the facility. So why wouldn't they be working if they're pointing at Epstein's cell? Just asking. As alleged, the defendants had a duty to ensure the safety and security of federal inmates in their care at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, Jeffrey Berman, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, said in a news release. Instead, they repeatedly failed to conduct mandated checks on inmates and lied on official forms to hide their dereliction. Each defendant is charged with 1 count of conspiring to falsify records. Noel, 31, is charged with 5 counts of falsifying records. Thomas, 41, is charged with 3. The conspiracy charge is punishable by up to 5 years in prison. The conspiracy charge smacks a little odd that they'd slap a conspiracy charge on these guys, right? Doesn't it seem like just falsifying records? Where's the conspiracy? So if this falls under a conspiracy, then you got to think the whole case falls under RICO, right? Right? Noel and Thomas pleaded not guilty in Manhattan federal court Tuesday afternoon and were released on the condition that each would post a $100,000 bond within a week. Epstein's sudden death triggered a wave of recriminations from his many victims, who had anticipated his trial on sex trafficking and related conspiracy charges. His suicide prompted a leadership shakeup at the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Attorney General William Barr put Kathleen Hawks Sawyer in charge and ordered multiple investigations into the 66-year-old's suicide, focusing on operations at the Manhattan facility where Epstein was held. Indictments unsealed as head of prison agency testifies before Congress. As the charges were unsealed in New York, Hawk Sawyer testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee in Washington, where lawmakers expressed outrage over the security breakdown revealed by Epstein's suicide. All right, so this was that closed-door hearing we were talking about a few days ago, talking about Ben Sasse, that he was supposedly going to go hard in the paint. So let's see what sort of quotes we got here from Senator Sasse. Senator Ben Sasse, Republican of Nebraska, called his death a crisis of public trust with the prison system. You are in the job because of this crisis, Sasse told Hawk Sawyer, repeatedly calling for an explanation of how the system failed to keep track of such a high-profile inmate. That bastard now won't be able to testify against his other co-conspirators. Prosecutors allege that Epstein sexually exploited and abused dozens of minor girls at his homes in Manhattan and Palm Beach, Florida, and at other locations from at least 2002 to 2005. Sasse said the charges against the two staffers are overdue. Heads needed to roll the day Jeffrey Epstein died, he said. The Bureau of Prisons and Department of Justice need to start giving the public some answers. These arrests are important, but they're not the end of this. These guards aren't the only ones who should stand trial. Every one of Epstein's co-conspirators should be spending the rest of their lives behind bars, Sasse said. All right, well, you're a senator, Mr. Sasse. Make it happen. Put together a task force. What's stopping you? Put together a task force and go after these people. You're the one that has the power. You're the lawmaker. You're the one that has their finger on the pulse, supposedly. You're the one that's in D.C. So, walk over to the Department of Justice, put together a task force, and go get these guys. Hawk Sawyer said she couldn't comment on the ongoing criminal investigation and a review by the Justice Department's Inspector General, but she acknowledged that prison authorities discovered at least a couple of other instances in which officers failed to conduct required checks on inmates and falsified records to show that they had. We don't want those people working in federal prisons, she said. This incident was a black eye on the entire Bureau of Prisons. We have had some bad staff. We want to get rid of that bad staff. The only time we ever noticed is when something bad happens. So, you guys don't know how to hire the correct people? Who's in charge of the hiring? So basically, whoever's in charge of the hiring should get fired and bring in somebody who knows what they're doing. This is what I mean about no accountability. It's great that these guards are getting arrested, right? But they're just a symptom of the problem. They're not the problem. We need real answers. Senator Ted Cruz, Republican from Texas, said Epstein's death is a symptom of deeper problems within the prison system. Cruz called the suicide a profound indictment of the system. Although representatives of Epstein's family suggested the disgraced financier may not have been murdered, Hawk Sawyer told lawmakers no evidence supports anything other than suicide. Yeah, okay, can we see the same evidence you've been privy to then? Because obviously everybody wants to know what's going on, and we have no evidence. We have nothing. All we have is your word to go on. We're supposed to believe you? Nobody even knows who you are. You've never established any credibility with the public, but we're just supposed to believe everything that Hawk Sawyer has to say, huh? Okay. Before New York's chief medical examiner concluded that Epstein hanged himself with a bedsheet, his death was shadowed by conspiracy theories suggesting he had been murdered. For months, federal authorities examined the conduct of staffers assigned to Epstein's unit and how he escaped notice. Okay, well, that's fine and well, but the cameras worked where the guards were, but they didn't work on Epstein's cell? Pretty interesting. Tuesday, prosecutors asserted that Noel and Thomas were the only officers assigned to Epstein's housing unit, and no inmate checks were conducted for at least 8 hours. Okay, pump the brakes. I thought there were 3 people that were watching Epstein. One person that didn't even work in the guard unit. I guess somebody from wherever else in prisons was there that night as well. Why have we lost track of this person? I'll have to go back and read those articles, but it's already getting weird, folks. We messed up. I messed up, Thomas allegedly told the supervisor. We didn't do any rounds. Guido Modano, huh? The special agent in charge of the Justice Department's Office of the Inspector General said in a written statement that correctional officers swear an oath to carry out their duties. Oh, well, okay, well, they swear an oath. That worked out well. Making rounds to check on inmates and certifying the accuracy of logs are critical to ensure the safety and security of institutions and the well-being of inmates, Modano said. Those who shirk their duties but falsely state they have completed them place the institution, fellow employees, inmates, and the public at risk. And here comes the spin. Are you guys ready? Prisons plagued by understaffing. Prison union representatives have long warned that staff shortages and frequent overtime shifts have taken their toll on officers and compromised security at the Manhattan facility. Okay, how many other suicides were there at this facility in the past 20 years? Oh, they don't want to answer that question. I'll leave that for the audience to go check on. That's your homework for the night. How many other suicides have happened at the MCC in, say, the last, we'll say 25 years? At the time of Epstein's suicide, allegedly, there were more than 30 staff vacancies at the facility, said Serene Gregg, local president of the Prison Workers Union. Prison officials regularly assigned civilian staffers to work guard duty to plug unfilled officer positions, she said. 10 of the 18 staffers who were reported for duty on the midnight to 8 a.m. shift, the one at which Epstein was found dead, were working overtime, according to federal prison records. On the previous shift, 4 p.m. to midnight, 6 of the 20 staffers were working overtime. Oh, boo-hoo! All right? Fine. So no more overtime for your union employees. They can't handle the job, obviously, so no more overtime for them. We'll bring in other people. I'm so tired of no accountability. Oh, we were tired. We had to take a nap. Give me a break already. After Epstein's death, Barr reassigned the warden at the New York Detention Center, and prison officials placed Noel and Thomas on administrative leave. One of the officers, according to prison records, had worked multiple overtime shifts before reporting to duty on Epstein's unit. I don't care. I do not care. That does not give you... That's not a cover story. Oh, I was tired. I was working overtime. Should I bring my shoes and my glasses? No. Hawk Sawyer acknowledged significant staffing shortages Tuesday, telling lawmakers that prison officials are working to fill 3,000 vacancies across the system. Many of the prisons, she said, are aging and need to be repaired. The failure of old camera systems prompted an effort to replace them at prisons around the country, including the Manhattan Detention Center. Oh, but they worked fine where the officers were, right? Those cameras were perfectly fine. After the hearing, Hawk Sawyer issued a statement about the charges, saying, "I am committed to the agency and am confident we will restore the public's trust in us." Epstein removed from suicide watch. 3 weeks before he died, Epstein had been found in his jail cell, semi-conscious with bruises on his neck. That prompted authorities to put him on suicide watch. He was removed from suicide monitoring days later, which has drawn investigative interest. Experts on jail suicide told USA Today that an inmate can be removed from suicide watch only if a licensed mental health professional concludes the inmate is no longer at risk for attempting suicide. Okay, so who approved this? Can we see the receipts? Can we see the paperwork? You guys want to see everything about us. You need to see everything about our taxes, how we spend our money, how we live our lives. Well, now it's your turn. Now you're in the spotlight. All right? Let's see your paperwork. License and registration, please. When removing such a high-risk individual from suicide watch, it would be critical to do it in a step-down fashion so that there is still some extra monitoring. Lisa Boyski, a clinical psychologist and jail suicide expert from San Diego, said. Boyski said Epstein was still a high risk for suicide because of the nature of his crimes, the humiliation he experienced after his arrest, and his prior suicide attempt. Jack Scarola, who represents some of the Epstein accusers, said he's pleased to see authorities investigate the circumstances of his death. I thought they've been doing that for 3 months. I thought that's what they said they were doing. We're investigating. Oh, we're going to investigate this case. Let me tell you about the investigation we're going to have. Meanwhile, we all know investigations are where facts go to die. 45 years of practicing law, he said, has convinced me that there are no coincidences. That's what Jack said, and I happen to believe him, especially in this case, especially with the circumstances that surround Epstein's death. Look, I'm not going to come out and say one way or the other, oh, this person's responsible for killing Epstein, or I don't know, I don't have those, unfortunately, folks, I do not have that information. I don't have those facts, and you guys know I'm not going to peddle BS around here. That's not how I roll. If I don't have facts, if I don't have evidence leading me to the proper place, what I'll do is I'll give you my opinion on things as we read these articles, of course. But besides that, I can't prove one way or the other what happened in that jail cell. But what I can prove is 3 months later, after the man's suicide, death, whatever you want to call it, and we still have no evidence. What's so hard about producing the videotapes leading up to his cell? You've obviously reviewed the videotapes of where the guards were hanging out, and that was just a mere few feet from his cell. But the cameras focused on his cell are not working. They just happened to break that night. I'm sorry, but nobody's buying that. I'm not buying it, and nobody in America is buying it, obviously. We have congressmen talking about it, senators dropping Epstein didn't kill himself memes, just about every host on every local radio TV show. I mean, can we have a little bit of transparency, please? Meanwhile, the same people who will call you a conspiracy theorist are in the middle of the world's most ridiculous show trials in history. And I don't care where you fall on the political spectrum with that either. In less than a year, we're going to have elections in this country. These people couldn't wait for a year to vote this guy out if he's so bad. Trust in the American people. The American people are going to make the right decision, and the chips are going to fall where they may on November 8th. But no, we had to have more kangaroo courts, more distractions from the things that that truly matter to people, no discussions about infrastructure, no discussions about the real trade deals, no discussions about Jeffrey Epstein, except behind closed doors. Look, we're tired of closed doors. We're tired of the lies. We're tired of the BS. Put your cards on the table and let us see what you have. Where is the evidence to say that he hung himself? Because there's evidence to the contrary. So I'm not just going to believe your narrative. I'm not going to believe the same people who gave us the 9/11, no answers for 9/11, the same people who gave us the Iraq War, the same people who gave us the Arab Spring, the same people who gave us Las Vegas, the same people who play the same games on a regular basis, no matter the situation, all to consolidate their power. And they cannot take it that they're not in power for one moment. They can't even take 4 years. That's too long for them not to have their tentacles scurrying around in the bureaucracy. They're just a bunch of disgusting individuals, and that's just the way it goes. These people have no regard for anything, and they will do whatever they can possibly do to bury stories like this that are going to get the American people fired up, because they're too busy gaslighting you folks. They are way too busy making you want to hate your neighbor, or making you want to hate the guy that's commenting on the Fox News comment board or the CNN forum. Those people, you know what? Before the internet, nobody was running around talking like this to each other. Now all of a sudden people have a lot of courage behind these computer screens. A lot of courage to say a lot of things. And all of that stems from the divisiveness in the media getting people riled up. They're not doing their jobs. They're not acting as a safeguard. They're not acting in good faith. They're not protecting abused women. This woman went to ABC to give them an interview looking for help. It's basically a plea for help. Will somebody help me? Does anybody care? No. We don't know who Jeffrey Epstein is. That's a stupid story. We're going to bury that. So, please spare me. All right? The mutts in the media can spare me their crocodile tears. All right, folks, if you want to get in touch with me, you can contact me at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. And if you would like to support the show, the GoFundMe link will be in the description, where you will find the source material for this article as well. Hope everybody had a great Tuesday. I will be back later on tonight with that daily drop